We did it. We're a youngish gay couple who retired early.
Yep, and we already started receiving our IRA distribution checks.
Now, how exactly were we able to retire at 54 and 51?
You're listening to Queer Money episode number 605, and today we're sharing some of the nitty gritty on how we retired early, so hopefully you can retire fabulously too.
Now on with the show. So,
So here we are, early
Yeah,
retirees.
I know.
So we've been talking a lot about on social media about how we've retired early, and it's been kind of forced as we've shared with many folks. But we have gotten the question. Why it's not so much a question. We've gotten backhanded compliments, I would say. Like the common response is, "Congrats on your trust fund."
Yeah.
Neither of us got a trust fund. In fact, one of us was disowned and disinherited, so we're not getting a trust fund or any money from that side of the family. Congrats on your six-figure salaries. Well, we never actually had a six-figure salary, and as we shared with on this podcast before, the last 5 years we haven't paid ourselves more than $75K between the two of us.
Yeah,
Is that about right? So I think a lot of people are like passive aggressive about the fact that we're able to retire early, thinking that we just inherited money, we came into money, life has just always been easy. And that's actually not been the case. And it does yourself a discredit, a disservice if you think that that's the case, because you just assume that then early retirement security, financial security at all is just not accessible to you. So we're going to kind of dive into some of the nitty gritty to see how maybe you can replicate our story to some degree.
Yeah. And I'll admit, there has been the accusation, oh, you just have white privilege. And John and I both admit that we do have privilege. There have been some very great circumstances that have happened in our lives that have been a part of the privilege that we have, both financial privilege, the physical privilege, as well as location privilege and access to jobs that I think a lot of other people haven't necessarily have. So we do contribute some of our success to that, but we want to share with you what we did with that privilege that allowed us to be able to retire early, because there are people who we know that have even more financial privilege, location privilege, and job success privilege than we have, and they are nowhere near retiring. So this might give you all some idea of some of the things that you can do if you feel like you don't have the success or the privilege that you want to be able to retire early. So what are some things that we did?
Well, before that, David, what do you have to ask?
Oh, yeah. Drop in the comments on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best or on point. How on track are you to retiring? And if you have already retired, how on track are you feeling about being able to retire comfortably for the rest of your life?
Right. So getting into the nitty gritty of it, the first thing, probably one of the best decisions we ever made in our entire lives was to buy a right-sized home.
Yeah.
That's talking financially as well as physically. We were toward the end of paying off our debt, $51,000 in credit card debt, right?
Yeah.
We started to look for homes. It was about time for us to move out of the basement, the proverbial basement, or the famous basement. And we were working with a real estate agent, and between them and all of our friends, they're like, "Oh, we were earning about $90,000 between the two of us at that time."
Right.
And everybody's like, "Oh, you can buy a $250,000 home to a $270,000 home." I remember we walked into a house in Capitol Hill that was well over $500,000.
It was a $900,000, 5,000 square foot, all brick home that was built around the turn of the century.
And the real estate agent there, who we didn't know, she was having an open house, said, "Oh, well, you guys can afford this. Just buy an arm."
She said,
A balloon payment.
you can buy it with an interest only and
Right.
refinance it in a couple of years and you'll be just fine. Now, this was in 2007.
Right. Can you imagine
What happened in 2008, 2009?
Yeah.
We were so thankful that we did not listen to that.
Right. So because we had worked through, we were both in financial services during the 2000 .com crash.
Right.
And we were both still in financial services. And at that time, we were both working for the same company, Charles Schwab. We didn't want to take on too much risk, because there was a possibility, even in a good economy, that one of us could get laid off for whatever reason, right? Companies are always restructuring and downsizing.
Right. And this was 2007. You and I were in financial services in 2000 and 2001 when there was the .com crash. And so we were in the back of our minds always concerned about this idea that we watched a lot of our colleagues get laid off during that time period, and so we were very concerned about that. We
Right.
said, let's be
We didn't want to
careful.
we don't want to put ourselves in too risky of a situation. So we were pretty adamant about looking at something below 150, despite what everybody was telling us to do. And thank God we did, because we bought our condo for $130,000. It was 1,008 square feet, and that's what I'm talking about when I say it's physically the right size for us. We have decided we don't necessarily need a home bigger than 1,400
That's
square feet.
right. We don't have a goal. We don't have a goal. We never have had a goal of having children. We never felt like we needed to have a huge space for entertaining or showing off. We just wanted something that was really comfortable for us.
Right. So 130 made sense for us for 1,008 square feet. And thank God we did, because shortly after we bought our condo, the housing crisis happened. There was a very real possibility that we could have gotten laid off at that time. A lot of restructuring and reorganizing was done. Fortunately, we did not do that. We did not get laid off. So we withstood all that, and so we were never actually house poor. But we did buy a place that did require a ton of work.
Right.
We had to, but we just did a ton of work. You know, beyond just ripping out the carpet and repainting the walls, we had to remodel the kitchen and the dining room. We actually had to do that twice because the person who did the first time fucked it up. So that was that was Toby's friend who fucked up the tiling.
Right. But I think we tried to do a little bit of a remodel ourselves,
and it looked like
we're not designers.
No.
For as much HGTV as we watched, we did not do
that's not our forte.
So we did hire a professional to come in and take a look at and say, what colors should we be using?
And
what finishes should we be using?
Thankfully, he salvaged it for the work that we did. And then probably the most disgusting this still scars David to today.
So we bought this condo. It was definitely one. I mean, the walls were yellow because the person who lived in there previously smoked. The curtains smelled of smoke. The carpet smelled of smoke. Everything was gross, and that was really, really bad. But that wasn't the worst thing. Out on the balcony of our condo was a wood storage shed, and pigeons had decided to make that their nest. So not only inside of the wood storage shed, but all over the balcony, there was tons of pigeon shit. And so I took literally 2 days
with a hazmat
with a respirator, all of that. And I went and cleaned all that up, putting it into trash cans and taking it down and putting it into the dumpster. That was really gross.
Yeah. And then the other smart thing that we did, fortunately, was when we were completely debt free, we didn't necessarily inflate our lifestyle, right?
Right. Yeah. So we've shared this story that, we had $51,000 in debt. We had kind of this aha moment of, we need to get our financial shit together, and if we wanted to have a better life. And what we started doing when we were still living in the basement was we really dialed our lifestyle back so that we could basically have about a little bit more than $1,000 a month to be able to pay towards our debt. And that really helped us pay that debt off within 3 years. But here we are in 2008. We had just purchased our condo. There were all sorts of things that we wanted to do with all this money now that we had all of our debt paid off. We had that extra roughly $1,000, $1,200 a month. We could have completely remodeled our condo. We could have gone out and bought a different place. We could have inflated our lifestyle.
It was hard. We did want to buy a fabulous house,
and we did do some small things that were really nice, but we did make the mistake of having paid our debt off. We did make the mistake of starting to inflate our lifestyle, and then we started to see the credit card debt come back, and we said, nope, we can't do this. Stop. We know exactly where this is going to go. And so we went back to living the lifestyle that we had when we were paying our debt off, which, mind you, John and I were still able to do a number of fun things especially with our friends. We would do a lot of stuff without having to spend a lot of money. And instead, we started funneling all that money, that $1,200, $1,000 to $1,200, into our retirement accounts, because that was one of the things that was important to it. We shared this before. We had 3 goals during that time period. Primarily, it was save for retirement, give back to the community, and be able to travel on cash without putting it on credit cards. And so we started putting money into the stock market. And we did it at a really smart time because we all know what happened in 2008 and 2009. The stock market crashed because of the financial crisis. And during that time period, John and I are putting buying stocks, buying into mutual funds or ETFs. But I did decide to make a few purchases of individual stocks. I'm usually not an individual stock purchase person, but I made some smart choices. I looked around at what I knew when it came to investing. I did follow the format that Warren Buffett encourages, and that is invest in what you know. Well, I saw Apple exploding during that time because this is when iPods and then iPhones were really popular.
All of our friends were buying all the stuff.
Right. Right. All of our friends were buying the products, and I was like, well, let's buy the stock. And so I bought a number of shares of Apple over a few years at around $16 a share. It's now trading at around $220, $225 a share. The roughly $19,000 that I put into that investment is now worth over $250,000.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Yeah, right. That's not the only one. I also saw what was going on with Facebook, so I invested in Facebook. That investment, roughly around $16,000, almost $17,000, is now worth almost $60,000. I bought Netflix because John and I were this is the time period when we were getting the CDs in the mail. And I started buying Netflix.
Those days.
Right. And I was buying it for around $55 a share. That $7,200 that I invested in Netflix is now worth $150,000. So this is some of the privilege that we have, right? We privilege of investing during the right time period.
But I will say, I know that it's privilege, but we have a lot of friends. We know a lot of people that we work with today who, rather than thinking about what stocks can I buy, it's what products can I buy.
Right.
And to us, very often the case is if a lot of people are buying the same product from the same company, maybe that suggests that you buy the stock in that company because that's clearly what everybody wants right now, right? Right now, you don't buy Target stock, right? Because nobody wants to shop Target.
Yeah.
But maybe 15 years ago, that was the stock to buy. Maybe 20 years ago, especially, was the stock to buy. Just paying attention to what people are doing and think to yourself, I'm going to opt out of consumerism and I'm going to opt into investing.
Yeah. One of the stocks that we did purchase, well, there are two more. One was Chipotle because I love Chipotle and I just saw how people were going and it was growing. It started in Denver and the number of stores in Denver started exploding. And then I started hearing about it going nationally. So I bought Chipotle. That also has done quite well. And I bought Tesla when Tesla...
Way back before he went cray-cray.
Yeah, I think I bought Tesla. I think it was probably in around 2018, 2019 is when I bought Tesla. But then, right after the election, John and I sold it. And I did make a killing on that, 100% gain on that. But the thing that John and I did, one of the things that we did when we saw the election results, we said, I'm not so sure about the direction of this country. And so we sold I sold a little bit of Apple. I sold a little bit of Meta. I sold a little bit of Chipotle and Netflix and then all of that Tesla. And so we put a bunch of money in cash, over about $100,000. We're sitting on that because we want that cushion of security for us as we decide to withdraw money from our retirement accounts now that we are actually starting to do that. But we are keeping it in a money market that right now is earning us around 4%.
Right. And I can also hear that some people will probably say, well, you own Meta, that's a horrible company. Just look at what they're doing to the world. Tim Cook is kissing Donald Trump's butt. That may all be true. But if you're trolling us on social media, on your Apple, you're trolling us on Facebook with your Apple phone, you're part of the problem too. So I don't know how many people are completely innocent, right?
Yeah.
You can't tear down capitalism while you're sitting in Starbucks on your what is this, MacBook? No, it's just, let's be honest with each other here.
So what else have we done?
The other thing that we did was probably the third smartest thing that we ever did was that we drove the same car for 15 years. I have always wanted a Mini Cooper, even before Madonna sang about it in American Life. And we finally got a Mini Cooper in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 2006. We got it in 2007. A lot was happening for us in between 2006 and 2008.
This was part of a little bit of our lifestyle inflation was going on there that caused us to go back.
We paid off that car in 5 years. And so we drove it another 10 years, and we didn't have car payments for 10 years. So that for us at that time was probably an additional $500 to $700 a month for those 10 years that we could put in the stock market or invest into our condo,
Right.
invest in some other way.
Yeah, it's when you think about that, $500 a month, $500 to $700 a month, plus and plus insurance not going up because I think our insurance went down as that car got older. We were probably looking at not spending anywhere from about 600 to 800, maybe even $900 a month over a 10-year time period. We're looking at somewhere between maybe $60,000 and $90,000 that we put into the stock market instead of driving a new car.
Yeah.
And God, there were so many nice new cars back then that I really,
Yeah.
really wanted.
I will say there were two times. One time we had to fix a transmission-y thing that cost us a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
And one time, because of the shitty roads in Englewood, Colorado, we hit a pothole that ruined our rim and popped our tire. So that cost us something. And that did something to it, like an axle thing too, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it fucked up our car. So other than a few $1,000s that we had to invest for repairs, the car was awesome for us. And right now, I know that the average car payment is $745 and the average term is 5 years.
No, it's not 5 years. It's longer than 5 years.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
But although you can go, I mean, there are people who are extending terms out to 7 and 8 years.
Yeah.
Which is, just think about that.
Yeah.
And there's no longer any car in America that's sold that's cheaper than $20,000.
Yeah. And so when I think about it, it was buying a home that we loved and could afford and allowed us to have extra money to put into the stock market, making some good investment choices when we were putting money in the stock market, and driving the same car for 10 years, even more money to go into the stock market. Those three things really have helped us build our portfolio to over $1 million.
Well, it freed us up to have the cash to invest in the stock market. And we've said this over and over and over again, that there's no part of the economy designed for success quite like the stock market. And we're a prime example of it. But, just like you can't rely on your W-2 anymore to help you grow wealth, it's a little bit risky to solely rely on the stock market to keep you wealthy. So we've done a couple of other things, right?
Yeah. Well, I think many of you have heard us talk about the Wealth Builders Pyramid. And the Wealth Builders Pyramid is basically a three-sided approach to investing in the future, or investing. And that is, 1, investing in the stock market, 2, investing in real estate, especially real estate that will generate income for you. And then 3rd is to have some sort of small business or business that allows you to control money coming in rather than just having an employer. And that's one of the things we did. We shifted over to having our own business we started in 2013, 2014 on the path towards it, but it wasn't really until 2016 when John quit his job and 2018 when I quit my job that we went fully into having our own business. And that has, although John, you mentioned this, we haven't paid ourselves a great salary, but we've also kept our lifestyle at something that is comfortable for us, not as extravagant as maybe we would like or do some of the things that we would like, but we've been able to control our expenses and earn our own income.
Right. And now that we're retired, we're taking distributions from our retirement accounts, the income that we're getting from Queer Money, from Debt Free Guys, from Living Not So Fabulously by Yahoo Finance, we're using that to offset our living expenses so that any money that we do take out from the 72T strategy that we talked about on a couple of episodes ago, we're able to then reinvest that back into our HSAs, a Roth account, even in some other kinds of investments that who knows what comes along. Yeah. But it does free us up with cash to be able to invest in something else.
Right. And, we could be looking at it and saying, oh, now we're going to be bringing in way more money than we have before. It's time for us to live it up. And you and I have said, no, we're not going to live it up. We're still going to make sure we're putting some money into future investments, whether that's into, like you said, a Roth account or setting it aside in a taxable account. I'm going to take a turn at doing some more trading to see if I can grow.
David's intrigued by swing trading. He's going to dive into that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we did, as David said, we completed our own Wealth Builders Pyramid. And so we have this investment property in Toledo, Ohio, where it's a duplex. We're currently living in the upstairs, renting out the downstairs. When we move to Mexico, we're planning on keeping the property, and we'll be getting rent from both units. Now, that will probably be
You
cash.
just let the cat out of the bag.
What?
We've not shared with anybody yet that we're moving to Mexico.
Well, if you follow us on social media, you know that. But we'll probably only be cash flowing about $100 to $200
Yeah, right.
a month.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a windfall of income coming from the property, and we'll probably put most of that into an emergency account designated specifically for the property, so we can continue to maintain it, and if there are any emergencies.
Or just natural maintenance, right? We
Or,
plan
yeah.
on keeping this place for 20 years. So putting aside $100 to $200 a month is going to allow us to do things like get a new roof when it needs to be repaired. We know the hot water heaters are both at least a decade old. So we know that we'll eventually have to replace those. The furnaces are both from the 90s. We know we're going to have to eventually replace those. All that kind of stuff is things that we want to set money aside for, so that we don't have to pull it out of our own income, our own pocket when the time comes.
And for our situation, if we want to or need to return to the United States, we have a place that we can move to. But hopefully that doesn't happen. And it just is a place that in 20 or 30 years, we can sell if we have to. And then we have all the equity. Hopefully by that time it'll be paid off. We have all that additional money that we could use to help us sustain our retirement, whether that's we're still living at large at 80 or if we need to go into a nursing home.
Right.
So that's basically, in summary, how we were able to retire at 51 and 54. It wasn't necessarily easy. It wasn't necessarily a direct and clear path for us. It hasn't always felt good, but it actually feels good now.
It does.
We're happy and it's working out for us. So to the extent that you can replicate what we did, or any of this inspires you to execute your own strategy to be able to retire at all, even if it's not necessarily early, please do so. And again, as David asked, if you're watching on YouTube, please drop in the comments on a scale of 1 through 5, 1 being not at all, 5 being completely on point. How on track are you for retirement? Meanwhile, don't forget to grab your Happy Gay Retirement Calculator to start planning your own fabulous retirement, whether it's early, abroad, or at the normal time.
And our DMs on social media, on Instagram, are open. If you have any questions that you want to ask us about what we've done that we didn't cover here, or maybe some questions that would apply to you personally, feel free to do that. So coming up next week, we are going to go back to our regular scheduled every other week look at fabulous retirement destinations for gay folks all around the world. And we're going to be taking a look at the country of Thailand. And then the week after that,
next week,
the next Queer Money, we're going to be talking about something that's coming out of the Big Beautiful Bill. I know we don't all like that, but this is actually something that is big and beautiful for those of you who are over the age of 65, getting an extra $6,000 tax credit. And we're going to talk about how you can use that wisely so that it actually lasts a lot longer and maybe extends your retirement out.
It's $6,000 for the next 4 years.
Right. It is for 4 years until the orange pizza is out of
Hopefully that
right.
And the whole party is gone.
Right. So if you love this episode, remember to like and subscribe and share it with your friends who also want a fabulous retirement. And until next time, stay fabulous. If you want a trick to retire early, check out this episode here about the IRS Rule 72T that we mentioned earlier in the show that's helping us be able to retire.